Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about things that I wish that I knew as a pre-med starting out. So just going into college, things I wish I had a mentor, somebody to kind of tell me what to expect, things to do, things not to do. This could have really helped me out and saved me some time along the way of this pre-med journey. Before we get into the video, just make sure to go ahead and hit that like button, and if you find this video helpful at all, subscribe for more weekly videos just like this one. Okay guys, so my first piece of advice to young pre-meds who are just starting this journey is to get good grades in the beginning. This is so vitally important for many reasons, but the main one is because no matter what people say, the fact is your GPA is going to be one of the most important things to these medical school admissions committees. I actually talked to a medical school admissions committee member, and I was just kind of asking her a ton of questions. And one of the things that I asked her is, when you first get the application, what's the main things that you look at? And she told me that they don't have time to go through all the classes you took to see how hard your major was. She said if they did that for every single student, it would take them way too long and they'd never get through everybody. So the main things that they look at is your personal statement, your GPA, and your MCAT score. She told me that as long as your GPA is kind of around average, what that medical school usually accepts, then she will put it in a pile to look at later. But if your GPA is lower than the average that medical school usually accepts, she throws it out without looking at your extracurriculars, without really looking at anything else, because you have to at least hit that minimum GPA just to show this medical school that you can handle the academic rigors that they're going to offer. Now, I hear this all the time, and this has happened with so many of my friends, where we're all pre-med now, but their GPA is a little bit lower. But as juniors and seniors, they were killing their classes. We were all getting A's, we were all killing it. But in the beginning, they didn't take it seriously, or they didn't understand how they learned or how they studied. And so for the easy classes, like the early biology classes, early chemistry classes, they did okay, maybe a B or C. When if they had just implemented the same study habits that they were doing in their hard classes like OChem, biochem, genetics, then they would have been fine and they would have gotten easy A's in those early biologies, early chemistries. So if you don't know how you study, if you didn't do very well in high school, if you're in high school right now and you're really trying but you can't really figure out how to get an A, keep working at it. Learn how you study, learn how you learn. Save those B's and C's for the OChem, biochem, physics, those tough classes where you may need a break. And I know physics might not be a super tough class for everybody, but at least for me, physics was not my strong suit. Now, something else that I want to talk about in terms of grades early on is going to be actually AP classes when you're in high school. I have a friend right now, he has been killing his college classes, he's been killing his grades, doing a great job, but the problem is he took a ton of AP classes in high school and he didn't really think he wanted to be a doctor yet, and so he just kind of passed them. He didn't try super hard, so now he has C's and B's. I would advise, honestly, don't even take AP classes in high school unless you know you can get an A. I know that some AP classes that were offered in my school were definitely harder than some of the college classes that I've taken since being at school. So unless you know you can get an A in that AP class, just wait till college. Okay guys, the next thing that I want to talk about, of something that I wish someone had told me early on as a little freshman pre-med, is to make sure that you're looking out and actually planning out your patient exposure hours and your research hours early. I do actually have a video of different ways you can get patient exposure hours. I'll put it up here, the link, one of these sides. But things like research and patient exposure, these are things that you're going to have to plan out in advance. I'll give you an example. So I'm an EMT and I also work with disabled adults. I decided to become an EMT November of 2020 and I signed up for the courses. The earliest one that I could sign up for didn't start until April of 2021. Now, it was 4 months long, so from April until August I was in EMT school, and then I had to study and get my license, and I got licensed around September. And I didn't actually end up getting a job until around November, December of 2021. So from the time that I actually decided to become an EMT until I actually was an EMT was over a year. If I had waited my junior year and finally been like, maybe I should start focusing on some patient exposure hours, then I would be screwed because I wouldn't actually start working until my senior year. Not to mention all the valuable things that I've learned working on the ambulance. This may also be very beneficial for you in case you decide to switch career fields and go the PA route. PA schools actually require 2,000-3,000 patient exposure hours, while med schools usually just require 300 to 400. So if you end up changing your mind and maybe medical school life just isn't for you, or residency just is too long, then you always can have PA school to fall back on because you went in prepared and you started getting patient hours early, and now you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 hours. Now next, to talk about research a little bit, if you're going to DO school, this isn't as vitally as important important as if you're going to MD school. But if you are choosing to go to MD school, at least in my school, research opportunities are kind of hard to get, and they do take a few months to get into. I wish I had started looking for research opportunities a lot earlier than I ended up doing. Now I'm gonna hit just enough research, but honestly it's still gonna be very below average. Okay guys, the third piece of advice that I want to talk about, it might sound a little bit hypocritical, but it's gonna be don't overwhelm yourself in your first year. I know I just talked about get good grades your first year, make sure you have research, make sure you're having patient exposure. While yes, you do need to be doing all these things, just remember you don't eat an elephant all at once, you do it one bite at a time. If I were you, I would just make sure to put your grades first and foremost. You getting good grades your first year is going to do a few good things for you. First of all, obviously make you have a really good GPA. It's going to reinforce that idea of yes, you can do it. It's going to give you motivation to do the next year and want to do better and better. If you start your college career with a really bad year, you're probably going to find it very unmotivating moving forward, and it's going to be even harder to do those organic chemistry classes and those biochemistry classes and do really well in them. In terms of patient hours and research hours, you don't need to be making sure that you have 200 hours your freshman year. Just set goals for yourself each year. So maybe your freshman year, you just set a goal to figure out what you want to do for patient hours, and maybe you're going to go sign up for the class or go get that certificate or whatever you need to do. Maybe that's just the goal you set for your freshman year. And with research, maybe freshman year, all you got to focus on is just figuring out the opportunities near you, learning more about what you'd want to research. Just don't overwhelm yourself, guys. So many of my friends ended up dropping out of pre-med and doing something else like business or engineering just because they thought it was just so much work, way too much work. And the fact is, you have 4 years. It is a lot of work and a lot of preparation, but if you split it up evenly over 4 years, it's really not that bad. On the flip side, at the same time, you don't want to not do enough your freshman, sophomore year and then have to cram everything your junior and senior year, because that is literally the definition of overwhelming yourself. You will hate yourself if you do that. Don't do that. Okay guys, the next thing that I do want to talk about is going to be volunteering. This is going to be kind of a short little segment. Basically just something that I wish that I knew as a freshman is that medical schools, and this is what this lady told me too on the medical school admissions committee, she said they like to see consistency for volunteering a lot more than they like to see just that you checked off a box. So maybe you have an opportunity and you go work at a soup kitchen for 4 months, 3 months, and then you go work here the next year and here the next year. They like to see more that you maybe went and volunteered at a hospital since you were a sophomore and now you're a senior and you're still volunteering at that same hospital. Even if it's 5-6 hours a week, maybe 1 shift a month, consistent volunteering is going to look a lot better than you just jumping around looking like you were just trying to check off a box. So just keep that in mind as you go forward. Look for different volunteering opportunities, but make sure that there's something that you'd actually enjoy doing and that you could see yourself doing for the next year or two and not just trying to check off the box. Okay guys, the last thing that I do want to talk about is just to make sure that you are taking classes that you would need for the MCAT early on in your pre-med career. I'm not saying take all of them, but there are so many subjects on the MCAT that if you don't start looking at the MCAT and seeing kind of what you're going to need to know, what you're going to need to learn, and start taking those extra classes until later, you're not going to have enough time to take them all. Then when you end up studying for the MCAT, there's going to be a lot of new material that you've never seen, and this is just going to make it a lot tougher to actually study for the MCAT and learn all these things, put a lot more pressure on you. As well as learning in a classroom is always going to be a lot more efficient than you teaching yourself. So I do actually have a couple videos on classes that you need to take before you take the MCAT that'll really help you out. Once again, I'll put the link somewhere up here. But just make sure that your freshman year, you're not just taking all the fun classes, and then your sophomore, junior, senior year, or even I've seen junior and senior year, you really start taking those hard classes that maybe aren't required for your major. Then when you go to study for the MCAT, you're kind of screwed. Just a ton of confusion because you have no idea what's going on. Also, sorry, I know I said that was my last thing. This one, really quick, I do just want to show you guys something that my pre-med advisor gave me 4 years ago. I'm just going to show you guys real quick. So this is kind of a goal sheet of what you need to be having for your extracurriculars for medical school. I'll just go through it real quick. So 100+ hours of shadowing, 3 to 5 experiences, patient exposure hours, 100+ hours, 1 to 2 experiences, community service volunteering, 300 to 400 hours, at least 3 experiences, leadership, 1 to 200 hours, 2 to 3 experiences, research, 100+ hours, at least 1 experience. And then obviously the things you need to be tracking: But keep in mind, guys, these are the minimums for extracurriculars. The more hours that you're going to have of these extracurriculars, that's just going to beef up your application, and you're just going to look a lot better to these medical schools. Just go above and beyond on these extracurriculars and get a good MCAT score, get a good GPA, and you will have no problem getting into medical school. Alright guys, so that was my video on things I wish I knew as a pre-med freshman. If you guys have any other questions, just comment down below and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. As always, if you did enjoy that video, make sure to hit that like button, and if it added any value to your life at all, make sure to subscribe. I do make new videos every week. See you guys next week.